Good evening, everyone. My name is Elena Strong. I'm the Executive Director of the National Museum. And on behalf of the museum's Board of Trustees and staff, I would like to welcome the Honorable Minister Peets and all of you to the virtual opening of Traces and Pastimes, a solo exhibition by Gherdai Hassell, which is currently on display at Commissioner's House and will be officially open after this launch tonight and open to the public tomorrow morning. This is our first virtual exhibit opening. We were really hoping to host this in person, but due to COVID restrictions, we decided a virtual opening was safer. And the upside is that we're able to welcome more friends from on island and abroad. Before we get started, I just want to go through a little housekeeping and what to expect tonight. So tonight's virtual opening is being recorded and post-editing will be available on the NMB website. A little bit unorthodox for an exhibit opening, we will first invite Minister Peets to officially open the exhibit. Then we will hear from Lisa Howie, NMB Director of Learning Engagement, watch a short video created by Brandon Morrison, and then hear from the artist Gherdai Hassell, followed by an audience Q&A. Before handing over to Minister Peets, I would like to thank the museum's community of donors, individuals, foundations, and corporations, and of course our membership, who make all our work possible. Thank you. And thank you to the awesome NMB team. I'd like to extend a special shout out to Head of Facilities, Andrew Harris, Curator, Dr. Deborah Atwood, and our summer student interns for installing this new exhibition. You made a complicated install look effortless, so thank you. Now over to Minister Peets to officially open the exhibit.
Yes, and thank you, and good afternoon to everyone, especially Gherdai Hassell. Good evening. On behalf of the Ministry of Youth, Culture and Sport and Department of Culture, I am pleased to join you this evening to celebrate the virtual exhibit opening of Traces and Pastime, hosted by the National Museum of Bermuda. A couple of months ago, during Heritage Month, our ministry was pleased to partner with the Bermuda National Gallery as a sponsor of Gherdai Hassell's first solo exhibition titled I Am Because You Are. Interestingly enough, my best favorite day on the job so far. We thought this was such an inspiring and moving exhibition that chronicled Gherdai's family history and her connection to St. Kitts in Africa. So we are really excited by the latest work by Gherdai. More specifically, this newest exhibition traces our own intricate collective history. And in doing so, it impresses upon us the importance of learning and knowing our country's heritage, our own family roots, so that we can all, in our own way, as a part of our own personal journey, develop a sense of pride. So our ministry is delighted to support this passionate artistic vision, and we encourage the community to support not only our young Bermudian talent, but also the Bermuda National Gallery and their ongoing community education programs, such as Tracing Our Roots and Routes, a year-long series of workshops that provides tools and strategies to research our family histories. And with that, on behalf of the Ministry of Youth, Culture, and Sport, I'm pleased to now officially open the National Museum's newest exhibit, Traces and Pastimes. And there is a virtual cutting of the ribbon. On three, 1, 2, 3. Congratulations, Ms. Hassell and the team at the National Museum of Bermuda. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Minister Peets. And welcome everybody to, as Elena has said, for those just joining, our virtual opening of the exhibition at the National Museum of Bermuda, featuring Gherdai Hassell. My name is Lisa Howie. I'm the Director of Learning and Engagement, and I'll be your moderator for today's event. I'd like to thank the entire team who are working hard behind the scenes, specifically for this installation, and also most generally in terms of developing engaging programs and maintaining the collections and museum grounds and the sustainability of the future of the museum. For those of you who've just come on board, please know that this session is being recorded and that I would encourage all of you to kindly use the Q&A which is on the bottom right hand side of your panel. There's a little raise hand, there's Q&A, and if you can put your questions and comments into that space, we would be thrilled. So please feel free to use Q&A all the way through the presentation. The Tracing Our Roots and Routes program, which we started in February, manages two key questions. Where does your story begin, and what legacy does it unfold? This program actually emerges from yours, the community's growing interest in genealogy. And our overall goal is to assist and encourage you to explore, honor, and preserve your family history. And we hope help you to find new connections with your past. And we're really hoping that that same outcome is a part of your experience when you go to the museum for this exhibition. To go back and retrace what we've done, in February and in March, we presented a two-part workshop series on the journey of family discovery, which included local and international resources. In April, we met with a team of professionals from the Smithsonian, and we explored the ways in which personal objects are used to actually develop specifically the collection and exhibitions at the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. Most recently in June, we met with our board member and expert educator, Dr. Janet Ferguson, to learn more about crafting a personal story by exploring the associations that we make with cherished family photographs or objects. Each of these events have been recorded and they live on the museum website. And there are resources online and available to be shared widely. So we encourage you to go back or to share forward and yeah, to make sure everyone that you know who would enjoy this program that they have access to it. Later, we will culminate this program with a crowdsourced exhibit, an unprecedented crowdsourced exhibit, I might add, which will be called Bermuda's Family Scrapbook. It will ultimately be displayed actually alongside the installation that you see up on the screen right now. And what we hope to see is your faces, your families represented and on display as a part of the narrative that we have built through the Tracing Our Roots program. So we look forward to your participation. We really hope that we have helped to provide you the tools to research your family history and to go as far as you wish to go, and that won't stop after this program makes its conclusion, whatever date that might be. And we also hope that you've had the opportunity on your journey to listen to how others have shared their stories, that those stories themselves might be servicing guidance or inspiration, and that you've also developed some creative strategies to translate that information and be able to communicate your findings and tell others in your family about your story and about your journey. Today, we add an entirely new element to the Tracing Our Roots program, which we do hope you will go to see in person at the National Museum's Commissioner's House. I have the pleasure today of introducing our presenter, artist, Gherdai Hassell. Ms. Hassell is a Bermudian multidisciplinary contemporary artist whose work is developed through a process of connecting her own experience and academic research to larger cultural, historical, political meanings and understandings. Inspired by childhood imaginings, her artwork investigates memory and nostalgia to create new narratives surrounding identity. Ms. Hassell graduated from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro in 2013, and she now resides in Manchester, UK, while she completes a Master's in Fine Arts at the China Academy of Art, which itself is based in Guangzhou in China. Her artwork is currently on permanent display in the Government Administration Building in Hamilton, and her work has just recently been added to the permanent collection of Bermuda National Gallery, where she has concurrently a solo exhibition that will be up until September. She has been featured locally in the Bermuda Biennial and the Sharman Prize, and in various international journals and magazines. Presently, she's working on an illustrated children's book, plus a book of art and poetry of her own writing, before setting off to an art residency in New York. In this site-specific exhibition entitled Traces and Pastimes, Ms. Hassell explores ancestry, cultural identity, memory, and time through large-scale digital collages and a flagging tape sculpture that you can see right now. Her work focuses on her own discovery of her family history, which she can trace back to West Africa. Now, before Gherdai begins her presentation, I'd like to present a snippet of a longer video which Brandon Morrison is in the process of producing. And this will give you a bit more of a context and understanding about the installation that we're going to discuss. So if we can switch over, please, to Brandon's video.
This exhibition for me is about possibility. What is possible for people? When I came and I experienced the building sculpture over 2 years ago, I walked in the space and was blown away by it. I had no idea in that moment that my work would be alongside his. My name is Gherdai Hassell, and my solo exhibition just installed at the National Museum Bermuda is entitled Traces and Pastimes. It actually started about 2 years ago when I came across my own family tree. I don't live on island, and so sometimes I come back during the summers to visit. And I visited my aunt and came across our family tree. It's interesting because she collects all of our family memorabilia. She cuts all of the magazine and newspaper clippings, just important documents about our family history. And I'm pretty sure that I may have seen it before, but it's interesting what we noticed, because I came across this family tree and I was just like, wow, it could be really interesting to do a little bit more research about this and to also incorporate it visually some way, somehow into my artwork. So I created a series of digital collages that are layered with archival documentation, with personal family photographs, pictures from the Bermuda archives, Bermuda maps. And I wanted to use these images and place them within a figure. And so as you're walking down the corridor, you'll be able to see some of the images that I've created here on the columns inside the bodies of the people. My work very much so, even my collage work is very much so inspired by my childhood imaginings. And so in making this, I was thinking about like how I would do certain activities when I was coming up, things that sort of like rooted me in my Bermudianness, like playing marbles or flying kites. And so those moments really stand out for me, and I think they do for many Bermudian children. And so I really wanted to highlight that, because I think that's so important for us and our heritage and how we identify our culture. And you know, I wanted the kids to come in here and feel like, oh wow, like, you know, I'm going into this really old building, but I can relate with this child. One of the things about the pandemic, it sort of allowed for a moment of reflection for people to be able to figure out like what's important. And family was one of the things that I think really grounded so many people during the pandemic. Being able to myself spend time with family, because I had to leave China, and for me there was no way that I would have been able to create this work if I wasn't with my family. But what's interesting about the installation down the hallways is that there's this crisscrossing. It sort of like goes up like sort of like a roof, and I think that that was really cool how that came out. It feels interesting, like you're underwater. So like there's a roof of the water, but then there's also like the roof of the house as well. So yeah, I feel thrilled about how it turned out, and the shadows that are being casted on the figures like really point to this idea of lineage and connections between generations. The cover image of the exhibition is actually from my own personal archive. It's my mom and I. We were on a boat. I think it was my godmother's wedding, and the water was behind us, and there was a Bermuda flag like blowing in the background. And for me, that picture felt so tender and intimate. Even though we were outside, like I remember that day vividly. And so when I think about our lives and the things that we experienced, we remember certain things. And I wanted those sort of memories to be placed on the body. And so my mom, she's amazing, and so I wanted to also honor her, because this family tree that I have is like my maternal side. And so I wanted to connect her and root her in this as well. For me, this is a really personal moment, not just in my career, but also in my personal life as well. Some of the images that are on the wall are from my own family archive. So I have images of my aunt, who has now passed away, my Nana, who's now also passed away. And so this is a real personal moment for me. And for me to sort of have this space and have them by way of me in this space, sort of immortalized in this space to a degree, because the exhibition is going to be up for over a year. It's beyond.
And it really is beyond. You are a young woman who is accomplishing so much, and I'm so very proud of you, as are your family members who are commenting. Gherdai, I don't know of a time when I can say that there has been a local artist on display in two national museums. And sometimes people do get them confused, but you are presently featured at the National Museum of Bermuda. We're delighted. Very much looking forward to your presentation. I don't want to hold you up. I'll just stay in the background. I'm here for you. We were going to do a Q&A after your presentation, so please take it away.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to see so many familiar names. Thank you, guys, and welcome. It's such an honor to be here with you this evening. So many friends and family, thank you so much for coming. I just want to extend extreme gratitude to all of the team here at NMB, the install team. We were literally able to install in 2 days, thanks to Andrew. So thank you so much to everyone. Just also want to extend gratitude to my mom and my sisters and my close friends, and Kim Robeson, who has supported me so much through this process. Sine, Kat, Jordan, just Shantae, it means so much to me. Thank you guys so much for being here. So without further ado, I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. So welcome to Traces and Pastimes. My exhibition opened here at the National Museum of Bermuda. I really encourage you guys to come and see the work in person. It's interesting for me opening up virtually, but it has opened up the doors to so many more people who are not on island. Some of my friends and family members who are overseas. So this is a real interesting opening for me, but so happy that I could share this moment with many more people than we would have been able to in person. Okay, so I'm just gonna sort of like give you guys an overview of how I started with the research of this work. I visited my Aunt Laverne 2 years ago and came across this family tree, and my Uncle Derek did all of the research. And I think it took him about 8 years to do the research. And so it's 8 generations in 8 years, which connects this current generation, 8 lineage, 8 generations back to an Igbo tribe in Africa. And for me, it was interesting coming across this family tree because I came across it right at a period where I was transitioning. I was leaving Bermuda and going overseas to study at the China Academy of Art. And at the time I had to figure out what I wanted to have done my thesis proposal on, and coming across this document within itself, not just personally, but also professionally, has literally changed the trajectory of the work that I make. And so this document means so much to me in so many ways. And I feel a real honor and pleasure to be able to honor so many people through this work. And so after discovering the family tree, I took a little trip down to the Bermuda archives and came across so many important documents, the emancipation documents, also many slave registry books that were there, and also a series of really striking family photographs. So encountering these things sort of had me thinking about the ways in which me in that present moment, I was able to access not just that present moment, but also the past and the future as well. And so rummaging through all of these documents, I thought about it as an artifact. And then I thought about the word artifact, how I could split up this word to sort of investigate different temporalities. And so I started to think about the past, present, and future sort of happening all simultaneously, and how the point of power is sort of right now in this moment, and how being grounded right now can open up a portal to other moments that can honor people of the past, but also allow us space to sort of imagine future realities for ourselves. And so thinking about my family tree, I started to sketch and develop ways that I could sort of represent my family tree visually. And so this is my sketchbook in China, and I created what would be the first iteration of my family tree. So this is interconnected. I made this in 2019 at my university, China Academy of Art. And it started off first as a sort of like abstract painting. And then I thought it could be really interesting to nail some nails onto the board, and then thereafter make connections on top of the painting that would represent the interconnectivity between people. And so you could see all of the lines crisscrossing, and how these lines sort of connect different people in different points in time and space. And so this was also a sculpture, which was a visual representation of the family tree as well, entitled Universal Language, using bamboo, yarn, wood, and acrylic. These works are currently still in China at the moment. I had an exhibition in China where I allowed people to make connections themselves on the actual piece. So you could see here, people were invited to come up and actually interact with the work. And that was the way that I started to really sort of imagine ways that a work could interact with the community at large, and not just, be something that's sort of static on a wall, but how can we engage the viewer in a different way. And so this is people coming up at the exhibition opening. And I was thrilled to be able to exhibit in this space. And so then what I did was I actually put the family tree on top of the painting, but digitally. I started working digital and started exploring ways that I could layer different moments in time and space. And so then I decided to create an Instagram that would sort of archive all of my my artwork that I was doing digitally, using found imagery and photography, honoring people and allowing these people to sort of become present day monuments. And so then that sort of led me to a series of colorful images using imagery that I found in the Bermuda archives and digitally editing these. And then I decided that I would create a series of sort of interesting time space digital collages using these found images. And that really set me on the path with this work that is now inside of the National Museum. Initially, it began as red, which was very much so represented by bloodlines. And the yarn was representative of the lines between the generations. And so here's some of the digital collages, larger so you could see them. And these are all Bermudians in these photographs. And so then that led me to the exhibition that is now on view at Bermuda National Gallery, where I took the images, the faces of different people and merged them together to create an entire new face, and having each individual part representing the past, present, and future all merged together, each layer, to create a new identity, to sort of imagine who the people who were named but faceless in the slave registry books, who they could have been. And so this is currently on view at City Hall at the National Gallery, and I really encourage everybody to go and see it before it comes down in September. I won't speak much about this installation, but I really encourage everybody to check it out. And so the work that I was working on prior sort of led me to this. And here at the National Museum is sort of another iteration and evolution of this work. Okay, so tracing our roots. This is sort of where I begin to really have footing and grounding in figuring out what I wanted to do with this work. And so I came across this quote, and it really had me thinking about how a building or how architecture can some way, somehow evoke memory within people, sites of memory. And so Gaston Bachelard writes, memories are motionless, and the more securely they are fixed in space, the sonder they are. And so it had me thinking about how calling into existence or recalling someone or a family member or something can sort of enliven a spirit, human spirit, and how that can sort of carry us and ground us in who we are right now living today. And so then in thinking about this work, I thought about a few questions. How do we reconcile a textured and layered identity? And what might be possible if we imagine identity in a new way? How can I use the temporal nature of installation to bring to the forefront meditation on time, and how all moments, past, present, and future, are interconnected and inform one another? And then how can we promote familial and collective healing from looking at our past errors and building community in public space? So these were the kinds of things that I was asking myself when making this work. And so interestingly, in researching and doing this, I started to see these kinds of things happening, like not only, you know, in my work, but also in my life as well. So interestingly, I visited the National Museum in 2019, way before I even knew that I would even have the opportunity to have the work in this space. This was in March when I showed at the National Gallery, and then this is pretty much today, and how these for me sort of collapsed into like one moment, which was really interesting to think about. And so when I visited this space, this is just sort of like a personal story that I just wanted to share really quickly. I actually emailed Bill Ming, who is the sculptor who created the family circle sculpture here in the space. And this was actually in 2019 when I visited. This was even before I knew that I would have the opportunity to have work in the museum. And I emailed him just to introduce myself and ask him for any advice. You can see the date here, March 29th. And so for me, I just want to like share the significance and how much this really means to me, to be able to show my work with someone that I respect and whose work I have researched and, you know, very familiar with. To have my work in this space with him is a dream for me. So I just wanted to share that, and to offer some context for sort of like how the story evolved in being able to have the work in this space. And so this is Bill Ming's family circle, which I thought was fantastic. Just even the title of the work as well, because I was thinking about my own family roots and lineage. And what I thought was really interesting about his work, and he writes about it here, was how he, with this work, was thinking about cultural and heritage links with Africa, the Americas, and Europe. And I found that to be fascinating because, in thinking about my thesis proposal, I'm thinking about migrations and how the cultural aesthetic of the Caribbean are sort of shaped by this idea of migration. And so Bill Ming, I think, is a perfect example of someone who is sort of looking at his Bermudian heritage, Caribbean heritage, and being a part of the African diaspora, and how that can somehow inform his work visually. And so while he made this work before, I definitely think our works are in conversation with one another, different iterations, but sort of investigating the same things. So when I walked into the space and I saw the sculpture, I was blown away by the blues that were in the work. Initially, when I had seen this work years ago, it was on view at City Hall, but it's on loan now here at the museum. And so for me, I feel like this is where it should actually live, because it sort of commands the space in a really interesting way. And so I was overwhelmed by the blue. And so while my works began as red, encountering this sculpture changed the works to blue. And so you can see here the transition between the red being inspired by bloodlines, and how now it's sort of inspired by marine life, and how people had to cross waters, and sort of how water retains memory. And so when I thought about what I would do with this space, when I was informed that I would be able to put some work here, I thought about ways in which I could sort of highlight his work. Because I think his work is a real symbol for the things that I'm interested in as well. And so this was sort of like a mock-up of what I envisioned for the space initially. Through the Doors, also a mock-up. And I thought it was interesting too, how this sort of thing created like a halo effect behind him, but also how it coincided with the outside of the building as well. And so first, when I thought about how I would do this exhibition, I thought about doing another sort of iteration of what I did in China, where people could come up and make connections on the sculpture. And then the pandemic happened. And so it shifted the work again. And I had to regroup and figure out a way to sort of represent the family tree and the linkages between people, and engaging people in a way that would keep us all safe, where, not everyone would have to like touch yarn in the pandemic. So this was my initial idea, but that changed after a while. And so then it changed to this, where it became its own freestanding sculpture in a way, and representative of the family tree. And so I'll just go through some of the source material that I use in the digital collages. I'm using my own poetry and found Bermuda maps that I found in the National Library. Images from some books that I've encountered from my aunt's archive. I believe this was, is this Crow Lane? I can't remember the name of this street. And then this is imagery from the Bermuda riots. And so you can see them sort of like embedded here into the work. And so I have many layers of imagery. So it's from my own personal archive. This is from my installation at Bermuda National Gallery. I have my own poetry here, some analog collages, as well as some imagery from the Bermuda archives. And so another source material for another collage, which will follow. So you can see the faces here in the background. And then I also have some fingerprints which have been occurring in the work as well recently, sort of representing like DNA and genealogy. But then I also have like small little threads, which is representative of a bloodline and linkages between people. And so you can also see here, this is an image actually taken here at the National Museum of the slave boat. Here's more. These are all Bermudian photographs. Two little boys standing outside of Bermuda Cottage, the Somerset Express. So these works sort of get embedded into the work and layered. I'm thinking about collapsing time and many things sort of happening and occurring simultaneously all at once. Here's another source material, and that sort of becomes this. And so I'm using my own paintings and markings as well. This is actually printmaking, and I would scratch onto like a mono printing board using blue and scratch out, and then apply sort of a piece of paper and press it down and peel it back up. And wherever I scratched, it would leave like these sort of marks of like negative space. And then that sort of gets embedded into the work and layered on top of the found imagery as well. And so then here's another, this is from my installation at Bermuda National Gallery. And so that then becomes this. Can go back again so you guys can see. And here's another, this is a photograph found in the Bermuda archives. This one as well. And this is here in the National Museum. And then that becomes this. Also incorporating Bermuda maps. And here's an image of a Gombe. And also, I sort of, in a way, obscure some of the identities of some of the people as well, pointing to this idea that we might have sort of like a view of a family or of a history, but we may not necessarily get the entire picture or get the entire story. And so in making this work, I'm thinking about how we storytell and, the kinds of things we remember and sort of what gets passed down between families. Here's another, this gets collapsed down and embedded into another digital collage as well. So that becomes this. And you can see here, I have the family tree, my own family tree as well. And also using all of the digital collages have my own paintings in them as well, that I then cut up and use for other collage work that I make. And so I'm also using my own photographs as well in the work. So that sort of inspired this family tree, the hair going up sort of like into branches, becomes this, and then also becomes this. So this is in one of the collages that's here at the museum as well, also using my same mono printing. And this is an image of 4 gentlemen sitting on a stoop outside of a house here in Bermuda, also found from the Bermuda archives. Here's another, I'm also like incorporating my own poetry into the works as well. Lisa mentioned that I'm working on a poetry book. And so in many of the works, I'm incorporating those poems, these found maps, as well as really interesting photos that I find from the archives as well to become this. So they sort of change and evolve in some way. And what's really cool about these is that when you see them, you can miss some things. And what I like about these is that you can go back and see something completely different next time. And so then I also have imagery from my own personal archive. This is a photo of my aunt Intua. She's my aunt that I mentioned in the video who passed away. And so I have her embedded into some of the works as well, where that would become this. and then also this. And one of the things that's really interesting about using her likeness in this work as well, is that, with this work, I'm honoring her legacy, and other ways that my family honor her legacy. We give a scholarship to 2 students who are going off to school, to university, to study art in honor of her, called the Lintour Memorial Scholarship Bursary. And so we give that every year to 2 Berkeley students. And so this was another way to honor her legacy as well. And so then I'm also using images. This is actually the cover image of the exhibition. This is an image of my mom and I. We're on a boat. This is the one I was saying at my aunt's wedding. To then become this. I did change my hairstyle, but yeah. So that becomes that. And then I also have some images that are sort of going down the hallway, the figures from my cousins as well. This is my cousin Jace, and she has some pretty cool photos of her swimming. So that would then become this. I can go back. And so in making these, I was thinking about things that Bermudian kids do, sort of like as favorite pastimes or things that families would do together. And this is typical of Bermudian childhood. And so I wanted to create imagery that would be recognizable to many people that are on island and have island ties. And so then I also have this image of me and my grandmother who's passed away, who, was a real inspiration and a huge figure in my life. So this then becomes this. I added some hair, I gave her hair. So that changed. I also changed my hair on there as well. So that becomes that. And here goes Jace again. I guess this must have been the same day, maybe. So this then changed, and I actually tried to create what would look like the identity of my cousin Tariko. So I changed this figure from Jace to then look like Tariko to be a boy. So this is sort of what my cousin, the heirs sort of give it away for him. He's probably laughing. So yeah, so that would then become this. And so what's really cool about these is that when you go down the hallway, I'm using the images from the digital collages that I've made, and you can find the imagery inside of the frames of the bodies. And I wanted the people to sort of bear this imagery, because I think that's the way that we remember, like we carry our memories in our bodies, like intangibly, we carry them with us. And so I wanted to represent that visually by placing the imagery onto the actual figures. And so you can also see here my family tree. And then I also used some images from the Bermuda archives as well. These are gumbays from like the 1960s. And it's interesting even seeing their costumes as well, because, if you're familiar with the gumbays, their costumes have become extremely intricate, way more intricate than this. So it's interesting seeing like the evolution between the ages and, the different time periods. So this would then become this. And this is also down the hallways as well. And so I wanted to add things that felt entirely Bermudian, that would sort of characterize a Bermudian childhood, and add these favorite pastimes and these activities that would root us in Bermudian culture. Also kite flying. And so here is my family tree again, a small little portion of it, and a little girl just flying a kite. And also you can see here like the water on her shirt, and sort of like how water retains memory. This is one of my favorite images in the exhibition. I remember playing marbles a lot. There was a season when I was in primary school where like I would try to get to school early just so that I could play marbles before school started. We would like wait around in the I went to Port Royal and we would like wait in the parking lot area for school to start. And marbles was a huge favorite pastime. So that's one of the things I wanted to also highlight in the work as well. And so you can see in some of the images, you can see the poetry, you can see the Bermuda maps and my own collage work. And so there are layers and layers of imagery, but also layers of thought as well. It has taken me, years to create this work, and I'm really thrilled the way that it is turning out. And so, just to sort of wrap up everything, I'll show you a few images really quickly of this space. And so here goes the halo effect behind the sculptures and the entire series of collages that are embedded into the figures that you can find down the hallway. And so rooted at the bottom of this sculpture in the center of the foyer is the family tree, and it's blown up. I've made a few edits to it, which I can show you here. I actually changed some things on there. In the original document, it said, brought from Africa as a slave. And I wanted to change that language because like these people weren't slaves, they were enslaved. And I felt it really important to sort of interact with this historical document in that way and sort of reclaiming the humanity for people. And so this is the sculpture, which is entitled Family Ties. And what's also really cool is how the Bill Ming sculpture sort of interacts with the work as well. And so this is an image that my photography that I'm currently working on and developing with my poetry, a family. This particular image I'm drawn to, and it shows up a lot in my work. And so that sort of inspired the roof of the ceilings, which Deb also gave really amazing suggestions on how to install this as well, but the roofing here. And then also just wanted to quickly mention how the work has been sort of characterized by the shadowing that has been showing up in my work recently as well. This gave the inspiration for not only this installation, but the installation at Bermuda National Gallery, where this is plants at my house in England. And the way that the light was showing, it casted the shadow of these plants on the wall. And so that inspired me to create that using images and flora to create a shadowing, but then also how shadows can be casted through transparency as well. This is like the first iteration of what occurred at the Bermuda National Gallery as well. And so that shadowing then shows up here in this space too, just in a different form. And the shadowing, I was really pleased with the way that these came out because they are pointing to the same lines that are on the family tree, crisscrossing, interconnecting, and weaving together histories, legacies, and stories between people. And here's the shadows on the figures as well in this space. And so this is down the hallway. You can walk down and they're sort of life size in the space. What's really cool is that you can, look at them and find all of the imagery from the original series on the columns inside the frames of the bodies. And so that's it. That's all I have today. I don't know if anybody has any questions. Let me check the
I can jump in to help you, Gherdai.
Okay.
You're making me chuckle that's all, because that's an enormous and very intimate and revealing perspective on the installation. And to be honest, one of the interesting virtues of Zoom and encounters like this is that we get a chance to actually have that kind of presentation. You've given us a very formal actual a lecture presentation, while also being at an opening that, to be honest, we all know we wouldn't have been able to achieve at a physical opening. So thank you very much. I would just want to start by acknowledging what we're saying in our group chat with the museum. We're honored to have you and so delighted that you've been so open and honest with us all. I will jump through into some of the questions because we only have a few moments. We've had two questions from Nancy Ann Miller, and you've answered the first one in terms of the function of the red lines, but she's also interested in your choice of the color blue and whether or not that was speaking to the middle passage in some way.
Yes, absolutely. I'm really thrilled for the question. Thank you. So absolutely inspired by Bill Ming, and sort of some of the themes that he was pointing to in his work as well. The family circle, the linkages between people, the middle passage, water, and how water retains memory, and how, through our bodies, we're, I think, like 70% water. We're holding that within our bodies, and it's very much so inspired by the middle passage as well, which is why I've placed a few images of the slave boats as well into the layers of the collages.
And Kristen White wanted to know a little bit more about how you chose the archival photographs, because going into the archives is not for the faint of heart. I mean, there's so much there. How did you go about making your selections?
Yeah, so when I made the initial visit to the archives, I was actually looking for images of my own family when I initially encountered my family tree, and was sort of disappointed that, I couldn't really find anything that was sort of personal. But when I came across those Annie Lusher photos, which occurred also at the National Gallery, in some of the paintings there, I was really drawn and moved by those. And then I also, last time I was in Bermuda in March, I visited the National Library and came across a series of books that included Bermuda maps. And it's interesting also how maps have had an interesting evolution as well. They've changed over time. And so I wanted to include those into the works as well. Because one of the things that I'm thinking about with the work is sort of how time functions, how bodies sort of move through time, space, and how this moment connects past moments, but also sets the tone or future realities for us as well, the way that we engage in this present moment.
And that ties so in strong, so beautifully and elegantly and eloquently with the intention of tracing our roots. I'm going to jump into a comment and question from Dr. Edwin Smith, who is a professor of art at Bermuda College. He's delighted with your work, and I'm just going to jump to his question within this long comment. He says, asks, apart from moments, is there a single personal object or image that has become iconic or extremely significant to you? Any single fixed representation that is now certainly embedded in your mind and gets your heart racing, whether you're thinking of your personal roots or your Bermudian roots in general?
Yes, and I'll just jump to share my screen again really quickly to show you the image that has truly resonated with me. I'll go back a bit. So if you guys don't mind, I just will go really quickly. So it's this image of this little kid. This image is actually cut out from another larger image of a family. It's, I think, 3 kids and a mom sitting together. The image is actually here at the National Museum. I wish I had included it in the presentation so you could see it, but for some reason I was particularly drawn to this face. And this one is the face that sort of finds itself in my work a lot, in conjunction with my poetry. So I've created a series of images that I've photographed, and where this kid is sort of how can I explain it? I've created images where I've cut him out, but then I've placed him in an environment created by found flowers. So these were flowers that I found in the park, and I would create and stage like a setting. So this one ended up being a house, but there are other ones that sort of amplify him. There's one where I created a boat. I think on the Instagram page. Let me just go back really quickly. I think I had it on the Instagram page, like a few of the images at the beginning. Sorry, let me just go back really quick.
It's okay.
Yeah. So here you can see another one. He sort of shows up again, but behind some flowers that I find. And this one was also that image that I just showed on top of a Bermuda home that I photographed when I was here on island the last time. And so I've created a series of poems that I've paired with this particular image of this child, and have been really engaged in the process of doing that. And sort of, it's interesting for me, sort of storytelling with the same figure in different iterations, and how the story changes in doing that.
Well, that gives us a forecast to your poetry and art project coming along. So that's an excellent plug for something we'll be excited to follow. I want to jump to a question by Catherine Hay, who's at the Department of Community and Cultural Affairs. She was asking, in our society in Bermuda, how can we, in our physical landscape, honor and capture collective memory?
That's a great question. You know, I really think it's about institutions supporting moments like this, because I'm just one lowly old person, but for me, making these projects a reality as an individual is sort of nearly impossible in terms of having access to resources. It's extremely expensive to be able to create a sort of, you know, monumental exhibition in some way as one person. But I think that when we have, like, you know, larger governmental or private institutions that have the funding and resources, when there is talent and, you know, someone who is interested in doing different cultural projects. Another person I can even mention is Kristen White. She's someone who is doing amazing things within the community. And I'm sure if she had the financial backing, she could do even more. Rashida Godwin, another person who is doing amazing things with the Titan tours. And so when you have, like, you know, smaller individuals who are doing things within the communities, I think it's rallying behind them and really giving the financial backing to take the sort of projects to another level, because it's only so much individuals can do. But when you have the funding, you have the resources, you have the reach, you have the press, you can sort of reach more people. I think it makes a huge difference. And so,
sorry,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, I mean, it's made these exhibitions possible for me. And so, you know, I'm just one example of this, but there are so many more talented people on island, so many people who are extremely engaged within the community and with collective engagement, but they just need support.
I think that's an appropriate closing point. We're on our 6:30 hour. Gherdai, I want to thank you very much again. And where you've just closed is an important touch point for the museum as well. Thank you so much to everyone listening who is a patron and a member. We value you so much because you enable us to do this really good and important work. I want to thank everyone who's participated today, particularly for those who, yes, you've signed on today, and I know this has been exciting. I also hope that if you came in just for this session, you go back to have a look at all the terrific work that we've put together for the Tracing Our Roots program in total. I also want to thank everyone who's behind the scenes on the National Museum of Bermuda team and our host of interns working with us this summer who enabled Gherdai's installation to come up so swiftly. Please be sure to share your experience. Please be sure to log on to www.nmb.bm, the website, and check out this live recording. And ultimately, stay tuned for more, because when you come up to the museum, Brandon Morrison's video will be complete, and you'll have another experience that you can have while you're physically on site. So we welcome you to the National Museum. We look forward to seeing you soon. And Gherdai, I want to thank you again so much. So appreciate your earnest and honest deep dive into your installation. And yeah, thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much, everybody, for sharing your evening with us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Gherdai, and thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Bye.